What if Ahsoka Tano was promoted to Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars? How would this have changed things for her and for maybe Anakin Skywalker? That's what we're going to get into. Hope you guys enjoy. And make sure to click the link in the pinned comment to enter the Saber giveaway for when we hit 50,000 subscribers. Thanks, and let's get right into it. Our story begins inside of the Jedi Council, as Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi are wrapping up a recent mission by giving the Council all of the details. Recently, the people of Onderon were overtaken by separatist forces, and the king was overthrown. This sparked a rebellion, and these rebels called for help from the Jedi. The Jedi were hesitant, as they didn't love the idea of engaging in a civil war outside of the Republic, but ultimately they allowed Ahsoka to lead the way in training this group of rebels to fight back. The Jedi couldn't necessarily engage themselves, but they could train the fighters. And over the course of a couple weeks, Ahsoka took on the mission, later without Obi-Wan, Anakin, or Rex, and she helped to liberate Onderon, while also putting aside her personal feelings in order to do it. Unfortunately, she was shot in the shoulder and she lost Stila Gerrera, a great fighter and person, sister to Saw Gerrera. Ahsoka was now getting the shoulder wound tended to, and as the Council heard all of this from Anakin and Obi-Wan, they were very pleased with the results, and so they dismissed the two Jedi. But as Obi-Wan turned to go, Anakin didn't move. Yoda leaned forward curiously, asking Anakin if he has more to say. Obi-Wan smiled. Anakin sometimes reminded him of Qui-Gon, and this was exactly what Qui-Gon did when he told the Council that Obi-Wan was ready to be a knight. Obi-Wan had a clue to what Anakin was about to ask, and Anakin said that he has a request. He thinks Ahsoka is ready to become a Jedi Knight, and liberating Onderon without Anakin, Obi-Wan, or the clones with her was her great trial. And Anakin ever so subtly looked at Windu, as he said he wasn't just asking this so that he could be made a Jedi Master sooner. He truly thinks that Ahsoka is ready. The Council murmured, and Ki-Adi-Mundi expressed that she is still young, only 18 years old. But Anakin said she is as skilled and courageous as any Jedi. She has survived on her own many times. She has proven that she deserves this. Windu said this could be a good idea. Ahsoka has proven herself time and time again, and perhaps the 501st can be split in half. The Order needs as many knights as they can. This war is only getting worse. Plo Koon spoke up, saying he believes that Ahsoka is ready for this. Obi-Wan agreed, saying he has had a first-hand seat to seeing her training, and Anakin has done as good a job as anyone could have hoped for. And within minutes, the Council was in agreement. Ahsoka would be a Jedi Knight. Anakin was now radiating joy for Ahsoka, and he ran down to the medical bay to tell her that the Council was waiting for her. On the way back up, Ahsoka was trying to get Anakin to reveal what the Council wants, but he didn't say much until they got to the doors. Once there, Anakin smiled, looked down to his student, and said that it's time they leave their roles as master and apprentice. Ahsoka understood now, and she truly couldn't believe it, but she followed Anakin into the Council, where all of the members stood, bowing to her. Ahsoka looked to Plo, one of her greatest friends, then to Kenobi, Yoda, Windu, everyone, and then back to Anakin. And Anakin ignited his saber, then deemed Ahsoka Tano Jedi Knight. Anakin and Ahsoka would spend the evening together in the temple. Both of them knew they likely wouldn't be here for long, as the war would certainly be calling for them again soon. It was decided that Ahsoka would get Rex and half of the 501st, while Appo and the other half stay with Anakin. To make up for lost clones for each battalion, many of the troopers soon to leave Kamino would be joining the 501st Legions. And through the evening, Anakin and Ahsoka talked and laughed with each other, as Ahsoka was taking in her new role. She was excited, and perhaps this role could help her bring change to the Order in the future. Anakin was trying to help her with this new role, but he has only been a Jedi Knight for a few years as well. Before the start of the Clone Wars, when it was really beginning, he was promoted along with a group of other Jedi Padawans, but he trained Ahsoka so he could help her. And after the evening meal, Anakin would disappear, as he often did, and Ahsoka would retire to her quarters, excited for her new role. And the next morning, as things were settled with the 501st, Ahsoka was sent into the battlefield. For months, she would continue to fight the Clone Wars. Sometimes, she would be with another Jedi like Anakin, Plo, Obi-Wan, or someone she didn't know all that well, but most of the time, she was alone. Ahsoka really didn't mind being the only Jedi in battle, though she did miss Anakin, but she proved herself, and the clones were truly like brothers to her. Without the Jedi, she still had all of these clones who would die for her, that she was a truly strong leader. After a long string of battles, Ahsoka would soon be called back to the temple for a week of recovery, which she was happy for. It seemed like the war was only dragging on, and she often lost sight of what she was actually fighting for. The endless suffering of the innocent people caught in the middle, countless clones dying every day, and the Jedi leading all of it. It just didn't sit right with Ahsoka. And while inside the temple, relaxing in her quarters, at least trying to relax, Barriss Offee would come knock on the door. Ahsoka was happy to see her old friend, and she began walking through the temple with Barriss. The two of them were both Jedi Knights, and Barriss said that because Ahsoka has this new rank, she feels very comfortable confiding in her. The two of them would talk about the war, and Barriss slowly advanced her talking points, getting more and more advanced, more political, even saying that she believes the Jedi Order and the Republic have become extremely corrupt, and the Jedi should not be fighting this war at all. Ahsoka was hesitant to agree. She did agree to a certain extent, but Barriss was seemingly going too far. She didn't necessarily disagree, but in her mind the Jedi were not just fighting for the Republic, but also for the innocent people stuck in the middle of all of it. It was very complicated. Barriss told Ahsoka that the Jedi need some sort of message, a sign, a protest to this war, and it has to be big. Ahsoka cautiously asked Barriss what she meant, and Barriss would lead Ahsoka into her own quarters, and Ahsoka saw the room was full of plans and schematics for something big. A bomb? And Barriss said she needs a Jedi Knight on her side, and Ahsoka knew now how far her friend has fallen. Barriss thought that because Ahsoka and her had fought together during battles and even been trapped on Geonosis together, that Ahsoka would be with Barriss on this, that she would agree. But Ahsoka turned to Barriss and said she could not allow her to go through with this. Ahsoka then noticed Barriss was not carrying her lightsabers. Barriss sighed, saying that this is a shame, and that Ahsoka has become just like the rest of the Jedi. Then she reached her hand out, calling her saber from behind Ahsoka, and Ahsoka flipped over the ignited saber, getting into a fighting stance. Barriss just tried to kill her. She again told Barriss not to do this, but she said it was too late, then swung down at Ahsoka. Ahsoka dodged and knew there wasn't any getting out of this. The two of them clashed sabers, and Ahsoka backed out of the room as Barriss put on a sort of mask. There were a few Jedi in the area, but Barriss now had her face covered, as she was furiously trying to kill Ahsoka at this point. She could not have a loose end for her plan. If she wouldn't join, she would have to die. The two of them battled all the way to the Council turbo lift. Ahsoka got inside to try and catch her breath, but Barriss followed. They rose up together, dueling now in the small lift. The Council was empty, but Barriss cut through Kit Fisto's chair in a swing at Ahsoka, then swung low, and Ahsoka took this chance to cut Barriss across the shoulder. She screamed out in pain, then dove out at Ahsoka, slamming her out of the window. Both of them fell down to the roof together, and both managed to use the Force to cushion their fall. They slowly got up, reigniting their sabers, and now fighting to the edge of the roof. Now Ahsoka tried desperately to get Barriss to stop. She reached out one hand, putting away one of the sabers, and she could see Barriss was even considering it. But Barriss's eyes shifted from sadness to conviction. She said it was too late for her, and again she dove at Ahsoka, but this time Ahsoka was ready. She sliced through Barriss's wrists, kicking her off of the roof. She fell all the way to her death, thinking maybe that her death would be enough of a message for the Jedi to see how far they have fallen. And this event would be extremely traumatic for Ahsoka. She basically just killed one of her closest friends, but she would manage to explain everything to the Council, and show them the plans for the bombing that Barriss kept hidden in her quarters. It was undeniable proof, and the Jedi thanked Ahsoka for stopping this act of terror against the innocents. Ahsoka was extremely shaken, and the Council would allow her to stay on Coruscant for as long as she needs. Therefore, Rex and her 501st troops could return to Anakin for now. And for the next few weeks, Ahsoka would actually stay on Coruscant inside the temple, contemplating the war. Instead of fighting in battles, she would spend time speaking to the more experienced Jedi, trying to get their take on the war, such as Jocasta Nu or Tera Sinobe, trying to make sense of why the Jedi continued to support this republic that seemed to be falling apart. She wasn't exactly happy with the answers, but through meditation with Yoda, Ahsoka had a vision of a different scenario, one where Barriss succeeded and it killed innocents while having little effect on the war. This gave her some peace in knowing that what she did was necessary. She would stay in the temple to find peace all the way through the death of Fives, which she only heard about through the grapevine. She'd been too caught up in her own mission to get involved with Rex, Fives, and Anakin as they went through what they did, and she went to find Rex to make sure he was alright. The Jedi were saying that the clones died from a virus they caught on Ringo Vinda, and Ahsoka hoped that the virus was just a one-time thing, and that the rest of the clones would remain safe. She eventually would find Rex in the Republic hangar bay, as he was helping his men unload their ships. Rex was very happy to see Ahsoka, and she immediately noticed something was quite off with him. The two of them would talk for a long time, before Rex openly revealed his thoughts. He didn't think Fives or Tup died from a virus. Instead, inside of their heads, all clones have chips, and Rex saw both clones go insane. Rex told Ahsoka that he fears that these chips have a greater purpose. So Rex and Ahsoka would explore this. The two of them always had a very special relationship. They could talk openly with each other. Rex and Anakin were good friends, but Rex and Ahsoka were like siblings. Ahsoka and Rex would discuss how they could approach finding more information about this, and Ahsoka had an idea. She'd recently started to develop the psychometry power, so perhaps if she could get her hands on Rex's chip, the Force would grant her a vision about what they are to be used for. Rex didn't know much about the Force, but this was as good an idea as he could think of, so over the next week, he would find a way to have his chip removed and eventually get it back to Ahsoka. And Ahsoka would try her hardest to focus in on the chip, to use her basic psychometry, but it just wasn't working. She tried for a few nights, but eventually had to give up for now, as Anakin soon asked if she was ready to return to the battlefield. If so, she could go with him and Obi-Wan on a new mission. Ahsoka would accept, and the mission was to Obadiah. Plo Koon recently discovered the crashed ship of Master Sifo Dyas, the Jedi who the Kaminoans claimed created the clone army. The crashed ship was on the moon of Obadiah, home of the Pikes, so now these three Jedi were off to investigate and see if the Pikes had any more information on the death of Sifo Dyas. What the Jedi did not know was that Count Dooku himself was also alerted to these Jedi investigations, and so he was traveling to Obadiah to make sure the Jedi do not discover the true nature of the clone army. On the planet, the three Jedi would eventually find Silman, the man who was aiding Sifo Dyas, and he'd gone absolutely insane in captivity over the years. The Jedi were trying to get Silman to reveal who posed as Sifo Dyas in order to create the clone army, but that answer was revealed moments later as Silman was choked to death. Now standing outside of the room was Dooku himself. Now the three Jedi ignited their lightsabers as Dooku did the same. Ahsoka remarked that she was surprised to see Dooku was doing his own dirty work, and Anakin smirked. He was about to say the same thing. Dooku said that some things are just this important, and then the duel would begin. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka lunged at Dooku, 4 sabers against 1, but Dooku was a truly elite duelist. He was backing up, but still in control of the fight, and the 4 of them would fight all the way from the detention level to an outside bridge on the side of the building. And while the 4 of them were fighting, Pike, Minister Lom, and his guards would run out and refer to Dooku as Tyrannus. This would confirm that it was Dooku that created the clones. The Pikes fired at Dooku, while the Jedi continued to fight him, and Dooku would soon electrocute the Pikes, killing the Minister. And back in the saber duel, Dooku was able to cut away one of Ahsoka's lightsaber, pushing her to the edge. She slid all the way off of the wall, and now was barely hanging on by one hand, with nothing but open sky beneath her. She told Anakin and Obi-Wan to keep going. She would be alright. So Skywalker and Kenobi would engage Dooku again, but Dooku soon gained the upper hand. He discreetly called to his ship, then jumped from a freighter to separate himself. But as Ahsoka was hanging here, she saw Dooku's ship sneaking to him, and so she made a move. Ahsoka jumped through the air, landing on a Pike speeder, flying it underneath Dooku's ship, and with one of her sabers, she sliced through the engines with it. On the freighter, Dooku and Anakin battled until Dooku saw his own ship. He was able to jump to it, leaving Anakin feeling defeated, like Dooku once more got away. But as Dooku flew away, his ship began to violently shake. Small explosions began underneath, and then, because of Ahsoka's cutting, it erupted in one huge explosion. Dooku died because of Ahsoka's quick thinking. It would have been preferable to bring him in alive, but this was the second best option. With the Sith Lord and the leader of the Separatists dead, the 3 Jedi would return back to Coruscant with the knowledge that the clone army was created for them. The first night upon returning to the temple, the 3 Jedi were able to get some rest in their own rooms, but Ahsoka with the new knowledge that the Sith created the clones and therefore also likely created the chips, had more information to use on Rex's chip. She went into deep meditation, holding the chip in her hands, trying to focus on psychometry while also focusing on the Sith. And because of this added information, the Force did grant her a vision, finally. Ahsoka's consciousness would travel through Coruscant, into the industrial sector, and into an old building. There, she saw Dooku and another hooded man, and Dooku was holding this chip. Dooku told Sidious this was the first inhibitor chip, programmed with all of the executive orders for when the time is right, and the hooded Sith said that this was good. He then assigned Dooku to make sure this first chip is put into whichever clone is the leader of Anakin's clone legion. And the vision ended. Ahsoka was left breathing heavily, and she suddenly noticed that outside her window, it was light outside. The vision, which only felt like maybe a minute, actually took all night. She couldn't even be sure any of this was real, that it wasn't just a dream. And so she decided to explore this pretty much alone to find out. She knew that she had to go to the building that she saw in this vision. Maybe there would be more information there on the Sith. She wanted to go to the Jedi with this, but would they accept that she went against orders to remove a chip from a clone, and then had a vision about the Sith? Would they even believe her? She didn't know, but perhaps Anakin would come with her. Ahsoka would look all over for Anakin, even going into the temple hangar, where she instead found Rex. Rex said he was preparing to meet with Cody and Wolf about a big upcoming mission, but Ahsoka said this will have to wait. She told Rex about her vision, and the two of them would decide to go together to this building in the industrial sector. Ahsoka asked around for Anakin, but ultimately decided that she would just go with Rex for now. If they found the building, perhaps they could just go back. It would be a simple recon mission. Anakin, he was actually in the Jedi Council chambers this entire time. After returning from Obadiah, with knowledge of the clones and the death of Dooku, the Jedi Council debated making him master. While there was some thoughts that Anakin wasn't ready, that he still hasn't learned to let go of his attachments, the Council decided that because Ahsoka became a knight, and because of Anakin's efforts in the war, he would become a master. This made Anakin extremely happy, and he soon left the Council to find Ahsoka to tell her the good news. But he couldn't find her or Rex. He figured they must just be taking a walk outside the temple, or something like that. And so he decided to go check out the restricted section for the first time. He was excited and grateful for this promotion. And deep inside the industrial sector, Ahsoka and Rex would find the building from her visions. It was real. Ahsoka thought that perhaps they should go back, tell the Jedi, but something deep inside of the building was calling to her. It was like whispers from the Force, telling her to come inside. Ahsoka almost couldn't resist, so she told Rex they were going in. They have to. They entered through a small door, and Ahsoka would ignite her sabers while Rex used his flashlight to enter the large area. They looked around, and the strange call lured Ahsoka into a new room. In this room, there was a large cauldron in the center, seemingly filled with blue energy of some sort. This is what was calling to her. Ahsoka walked up to it. Rex was behind her, and Ahsoka thought she saw a shadow fly across the wall. It must have just been her own. But she reached the cauldron and looked inside. It was extremely mystical, carrying a dark aura. Ahsoka asked Rex what he thought, but a moment later, she heard a lightsaber ignite, and Rex gasped as it went through his back. Ahsoka turned, igniting her own sabers, and saw the Sith Lord drop Rex to the ground. He clawed at the floor, and then he went limp. The Sith Lord erupted into laughter, saying that Ahsoka was foolish to think he would not sense her meditations on the chip. He sees everything, knows everything, controls everything, and now she will die alone. Ahsoka readied herself, not saying a word, wondering who it was underneath the hood, and the Sith flew at her. Ahsoka blocked the first strike from Sidious, flipping backwards to get away, circling around the room. She could only see his wicked smile from under the hood, and with a flick of his wrist, Sidious threw a piece of the wall and it slammed into Ahsoka. She flopped to the ground, getting up to see that Sidious was gone. She looked all around, laughter still echoing in the room. He was enjoying this. And within a second, Sidious spun and slashed at Ahsoka across the back. She never saw it coming, and now she screamed out in pain, hitting her head on the cauldron as she fell, still swirling with dark side energy inside of it. And as Sidious lunged at her again, Ahsoka had an idea. She plunged both of her sabers into this cauldron, and it immediately exploded as the Force energy inside was disrupted. Both her and Sidious would be slammed into the wall. as the entire building began to shake and collapse. Sidious scowled, running to the door, but Ahsoka got in his way. Her back was in searing pain. She could barely stand, but she had to do this. She held up her sabers, ready to die if it meant keeping the Sith here any longer, hoping he dies with her in the building explosion. Sidious raised his sabers, preparing to strike the weakened Ahsoka down, but before he could swing at her, 2 twin blasts pierced his heart. Sidious gasped. His hood fell to reveal the face of Palpatine, and he died with a true look of fear and failure on his face. Ahsoka looked to the ground to see Rex, hands shaking, eyes glossy, but he was alive. Through a shaky cough, he told Ahsoka to never underestimate a clone. It was Sidious's downfall. And as the building violently shook again, explosions could be heard from the lower floors. Ahsoka grabbed Rex, and they limped to their speeder together. At the final second, they got into the speeder and flew away. The explosion of the building hit their speeder, and it went down, crashing into the ground, as Ahsoka went out cold. Eventually, Ahsoka began to open her eyes as she could hear sirens and rescue teams all around her. The explosion from the building sent the Jedi into action, and Ahsoka could now hear Anakin trying to wake her up. She opened her eyes to see Rex next to her. His eyes were open, but not because he was awake. The stab wound plus the crash killed Rex, and Ahsoka began to cry, remembering his sacrifice. Ahsoka would recover enough to go back to the temple, telling the Jedi everything. They were very surprised, but Palpatine being Sidious was something they explored. So the council would soon gather, taking control of the Senate, stating that the position of Chancellor was held by the highest leader of the Separatists. Over the next week or so, the war would begin to come to an end, as Anakin and Obi-Wan would travel to Utapau to find and destroy Grievous once and for all. With the war now over, Senator Bail Organa would be elected as Chancellor, and the Republic would try to find peace once more. And with the war ended, Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Cody would go to Kamino and begin negotiating how the clones would be treated in the newer Republic. They would stop being produced altogether, inhibitor chips would be removed, advanced aging would be stopped, and the clones would get a seat in the Republic Senate, along with a retirement pension, unless they choose to stay as Republic security. And before leaving Kamino, the 4 of them would lower Rex into the waters, sending his body off to forever be in the sea of his home world. His sacrifice saved the Republic, the Jedi, and his brothers. And now, Ahsoka would eventually take Gungi to be her first student, and training a student would bring happiness back into her life. Anakin was an excellent help, and over time, Ahsoka would be made a master, becoming a key member in helping the Jedi reform to their best. Around 10 years later, as she was given a seat on the council next to Anakin and Obi-Wan, she would take on Luke Skywalker as a Padawan, while Obi-Wan would train Leia. By this point, Yoda had passed on due to natural causes. Oppo Rensis, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Coleman Kaj stepped down, and Plo Koon became Grand Master, with Windu staying as Battle Master. Anakin and Ahsoka were excellent voices on the council, and they would help lead the Jedi in becoming better for decades. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, I really did. Once again, please hit the subscribe button to be eligible for the 50,000 giveaway. Link in the pinned comment down below to check that out. We're almost there, I appreciate all of you. Shout out to all of the members on this channel. You guys are great. I love making member videos, streams, whatever. I'll be live streaming my reaction to the Acolyte trailer that's coming out tomorrow, so very excited for that. Hope you guys are excited for that as well. I think it's going to be a great show. Anyways, yeah, check out the membership. And let's talk about today's story. I really like this one, Ahsoka becoming a Jedi Knight. You know, there's a lot of videos. What if Anakin became Master? What if, you know, basically that. But I like to take those videos and think, how can I, you know, adjust them to be similar but very different. And Ahsoka becoming Knight, to me, is on that same concept that I think is really fun to explore, because it in turn does eventually make Anakin become Master. But that wasn't the path I really chose to focus on for this story. I could have done it where, you know, this is your typical Ahsoka stays in the Order video, where she becomes Knight, stays in the Order, and we kind of jump around all the way to Revenge of the Sith, and Ahsoka is able to convince Anakin to just kill Sidious. I decided not to take that path. I think I've probably done it before, but I really like this one where we just kind of single in on Ahsoka and just her toughness and really trying to fight through the war, not liking the war, and eventually, you know, with Barriss fights and kills her. Dooku, she plays a big role in taking him down, and then with Sidious, I wanted to have Sidious basically nearly destroy her, because he would. Ahsoka versus Sidious is not a fair match. But having Rex survive from the stab wound, barely enough to shoot him dead in honor of Fives, or just, for the clones. I always like doing stuff like that, so I hope you guys enjoyed that part. Appreciate you guys listening, and I'll see you in the next video.